Hello and welcome to Sproutlogic Gardening. My name's Mike. Now, some plants definitely require a lot more attention than others. Echinacea is not one of them. A lot of times, gardeners often tend to think way too hard into how to grow it and spend too much time on its conditions and things. Well, today we're going to plant bare root Echinacea, and I'm going to show you. It's not something we need to overthink. It's quite easy. Let's dive into it. If you're unfamiliar with Echinacea, there's actually a couple ways that you can start off with growing it. So number one, and that's the method we're going to use today, is actually using bare roots. So basically there's a little bit of a crown showing, then the roots go below it. We're going to be planting that into the ground. You also can grow these from seeds, and in fact I'm actually growing some from seeds as well at this very moment. And then of course the old-fashioned, go into your garden center, and if they have it available you can pick it up. So a lot of times what people get confused on is when they tend to look at flowers like these, they go, they must have some really intense requirements, or I need to understand specifically what it needs to do. It probably needs a bunch of compost. I mean, typically when we think about flowers, they're usually quite hungry and they require a decent amount of nutrients and stuff. And that's kind of the first mistake that people do. Echinacea comes from the prairie. Typically, it's grown in very arid environments. It can live through drought without too much trouble. It's on open plains of fields with grass. And so its requirements are simply, do I have dirt? Do I get a lot of sun? Nutrient wise, it doesn't matter. You do not need to put compost into the soil. You don't need to fertilize this. I mean, once it's basically established, it's pretty much bulletproof. And that's where people tend to make the first mistake. They get tons and tons of different things to add to the soil. They get, I better put down fertilizer, slow release things. I better go ahead and when I fertilize the rest of my plants in my garden, let me go ahead and do that. Now you're thinking, well, how could that possibly harm a plant, right? When we fertilize, you get explosive growth. Not with Echinacea. Echinacea will in fact get stunted by growth when you hit it with tons of nutrients. Because again, its environment it lives in, it's the prairie, it's the plains. It's not a place that's really nutritious and has tons and tons of available things in the soil for it. So that's kind of the first mistake that people tend to make when it comes to Echinacea. The other thing is making sure you get proper placement. Now, Echinacea thrives in full sun, and this is something that's really important. And when I go to show you how I plant it, you'll kind of understand why I'm putting it there, basically. But it needs full sun, 6+ hours, easy, in order to maintain itself. And that is something important that we need to make sure we're giving it. If you plant it in partial shade, it will do really, really poorly, if do anything at all. Most likely it'll kind of die. The other thing that people need to think about when it comes to Echinacea is oftentimes when you start from seed or you go from these bare roots, there's an assumption like, I'm going to have tons of flowers. The first year, you will get some flowering. It's not going to be very robust. Remember, if you're starting especially from bare roots or seed, it's trying to establish its actual roots or reestablish them in this case. So it's going to put a lot more energy into that versus growing flowers. You will still get flowers, of course, but just be patient with this. Echinacea is a perennial, so this does come back year after year. It's also kind of an interesting one because I have one right now, and I'll show you a little bit later on, that I overwintered, we'll say, and it looks like it's completely dead, but you really can't tell because it stores all its nutrient stuff in the roots and comes back from the roots. So while it looks like it's dead, I'm going to leave it, and I'm going to roll the dice and hope that it comes back. In fact, it's the Echinacea you see in my intro video, which really was beautiful. And personally, it's one of my favorite plants. Now, when we talk benefits, now how does this benefit your garden? Echinacea is great for pollinators, great for bees, great for butterflies, and it even goes beyond that. So as it enters fall and begins to die back, what I typically recommend is just leaving it. Let it sit. Let it just stay completely the way it is until spring, because it often forms these great seed heads that are super beneficial to birds, especially during the winter time, which is really tough for them, and that's when they need the most nutrients. So that pretty much covers the basics of Echinacea. Again, we're not going to focus on putting tons and tons of nutrients into the soil. You do need to make sure, of course, it is pretty free draining. It doesn't like to sit and be completely drenched. But, when we talk about garden soil, most of the times I like to think the soil is basically at that point. If not, you want to amend it, put some perlite or things in there to make sure it's going to be okay. Probably time to start working on planting this. So, let's get to it. It's time to talk about the space we're going to plant this Echinacea in. And actually, this bed currently has one living in it. Well, I thought it was living. I was unsure, as I mentioned before. It's actually located right here, and I'm going to give you a kind of a zoomed in view to show you. But that's the one point I want to double down on echinacea, especially after it's established. Like I said, you leave it over the winter. And in fact, I recommend just leaving it. Flower heads and all, leaves looking brown and dead, just leave it. Come early spring, or even a little bit before spring, because it's not spring just yet here, you can cut it back. That's totally fine, and you cut it back to the ground. It looks dead. It looked dead before. In fact, I was absolutely positive this thing is gone. Nope, it's coming back. So be patient with it, especially during the springtime. It will come back, and it will be okay. Now, if for some reason you don't get any green shoots, probably by middle of spring, unfortunately, that means it didn't make it. But this is a tough, tough plant. Once established, it can withstand pretty decent amounts of cold. It can withstand drought. It doesn't need to be fed. Like I said, this is a really, really unique plant grown on the prairie that lives in a hard environment. So in this bed, I have an echinacea. I have a white yarrow that's going to grow alongside it. My plan is to put a couple more yarrows in here, but I'm going to dedicate this side to echinacea. And I want to talk about quickly what you're kind of seeing here, which on top is a mix of leaves, so leaf compost, and basically mulch. And so this soil I have not amended. I have not added anything to. It is pretty, I'll say it's barren. Like, nutrient-wise, it's probably drained out. Before I planted these two plants in here, I had, I believe it was sweet peas, actually, that was growing in here, and chives and a couple other things. So those would have added a little bit of nutrients, the sweet peas at least. The chives would have taken a little bit out, but this soil is going to be pretty barren. I mean, it's been a whole season of not doing anything to it. So, and again, that's the environment that echinacea prefers. So we have a light kind of mulching of leaves and wood chips on top. The soil is going to be pretty barren. Oh, and the cane, by the way, you're probably wondering, well, why is there the cane there? I actually use it to support the echinacea. You might need to do the same in the season. So I had to tie up some of the flower heads that weren't flopping over. But yeah, we might as well dive into going to get this thing planted in the ground. So looking at the bed again here, I'm about to go ahead and get this planted. I'm going to space this out a little bit differently. So typically echinacea wants about 8 to 12 inches. And if I can, I want to go a little bit tighter. Now, on inspecting the bag, what I've kind of realized is I think there's maybe 2, maybe 3 in here, from what I can tell. And let me show you what I'm dealing with. You're going to look at this and go, this does not look promising. And frankly, I would agree with you on that. Um, the top part is going to be up here. See, these are roots. This is the top part. That's the crown. So we want to go in the ground like this, right? I'm trying to separate these little guys out. But, oops, it's so easy to lose them. Now, these aren't looking promising. I'll be honest with you. I kind of bought this at a local garden shop. And I expected that this might be a challenge. I don't know if all these will make it. That's okay. But let me lay them out here so I don't lose them. Because as you see on the bed here, I got all this mulch and stuff kind of laid out. And let's plant the first one. So I'm going to dig a little bit of a hole here. And now if you want to do this right, make things easier, you want to put a little flag down where you're planting them. So I'm going to leave the spot kind of exposed so I remember, and I'll come back and put a flag down. Now, 8 to 12 inches is normally what they need. I'm going to go a little more aggressively because these are going to be small and starting off young. I'm less worried about that. And I can always move them next year if I need to. So throw this into the ground. There we go. Okay. This is another one, so we'll go ahead and go over here, I think. So I'm going to push the mulch aside. This ground is really moist, which is great, and ready to go. So, okay. Got that guy there. Now, again, I'm kind of thinking my chances are slim here with this stuff. I mean, I know I said that it's pretty bulletproof and tough, but these little roots are not looking great. They're super dry, super brittle, so I'm unsure that these will, in fact, come back or bounce back. But it's a tough plant. It surprised me before. So we're going to go with it. I'll put a little more soil. That one seems to have a weirder root ball. All right, I'm going to finish up planting these. You kind of saw the method, but basically you want to make sure the stem is up, the crown, and then the roots go into the ground. You want to put the soil around it. We don't want to cover this top part, the crown. We want to make sure that stays above ground. So let me go ahead and I'll finish this up, and then we will wrap up Echinacea as a whole. So we want to end this with a quick soak, right? This little rootstock needs to get some good moisture in here to make sure that it can settle in properly. And I still left them kind of exposed. I need to put flags up. And once I do that, I'll go ahead and put the mulch back over it. Now, just keep in mind, we're not doing any crazy amendments, nothing wild in here. I'm not going to be adding fertilizer and things. The soil wants to be barren, and it's going to be barren. We're going to leave it alone. And again, this is a full sun environment, so this will be getting at least probably 8+ hours of sunlight, which is what we want, and that'll give it the best chance for success. I hope this video is helpful for you. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments. And of course, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps my channel. And we'll see you on the next video. Take it easy.